Okay, well, thank you again so much, Angela, for being a part of this project. It's been my passion to get some stories out there. I really want to increase awareness, decrease stigma around food addiction treatment, all of that. And I just so appreciate your willingness to be here today and share your story. So would you mind introducing yourself and just start wherever you want to start?
Okay, my name is Angela Gould. I am 62 years old. I was born with cerebral palsy, which is a neurological disorder. So I grew up with that. I was that slender person. Then after I had my second son, I actually broke my back. And I think that was the beginning of my food addiction, because the doctors would say, well, you have CP, what do you expect? And I'm like, I don't expect to be in this much pain. And so Starbucks opened up, there was a mocha. Oh my gosh, did that taste good? So that was the beginning, 1 to 2 mochas a day, every day for over a decade. Didn't matter what it cost. That was just part of my routine, or it became part of my routine. And then it was, dessert, birthday, cultural affairs. And the weight started going on and on and on and on and on. So where did I realize I really had a problem? There was about 3 events that happened in my early 40s where I knew, okay, this is not good. Number one, well, multiple things. Home life really sucked. There was a lot of screaming on my part going on. My dad had a heart attack. What else? I swore at my kids pretty badly. And the irony was we were getting ready to go to mass. And I was heard across the street, 3 houses up, by a trucker who's a neighbor of ours who knew us, thought it was hysterical because he knew the 2 boys as well. And he and his wife were laughing. And when Kay told me about it, I was mortified, absolutely mortified. Wanted to go build my convent 2 steps below the pity pits, was embarrassed beyond belief. And she's like, no, you have to do what you have to do to get your children to mind you. Yeah, well, that doesn't mean cursing at them in a most offensive way. So instead of going to confession, I went to the doctor. And we did a comprehensive blood panel. We did thyroid, we did female hormones. There was a test out there he could run inflammation, he ran it. So we get the results back and he says, okay, I can put you on some bioidentical hormones because they were all in flux. I can put you on some thyroid medication because you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. But these triglycerides at over 200 and this blood sugar at 126, that's on you. That's carbohydrates. So he was even promoting low carb before Atkins wrote his best-selling book. Okay. So I said, okay, give me some numbers to work with. Well, here, go work with our nutritionist. Well, there's nothing wrong with being a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian. I will never be a vegetarian, no matter how hard I try. Okay, but she was more of a vegetarian. And I'm more steak, hamburgers, more steak. I mean, I say I can eat steak every day and twice on Sunday. And this was before the whole low carb keto craze that we knew about. We just had Atkins. So he said, okay, 80 grams of total carbs, 115 grams of protein, and fat can be the rest. And let's put you on 1,300 calories. That's not enough food. So talking to my son today, I mean, that was a start. Okay. That was a start. That was guidelines. That was better than what I had been doing. But talking to my son just a few minutes ago, I said, so when I was in the throes of my food addiction, my carb addiction, what was the one thing that you didn't like? He says, your mood swings. I mean, you were happy one minute and screaming the next, and we never knew where you were going to be on the spectrum. And you wouldn't let us go down and get fast food, but we would see fast food wrappers in your van. And I had to chuckle. I said, okay, this has nothing to do with food addiction, but when you bring Josie out for Thanksgiving, my 18-month-old granddaughter, I said, she can ride on my lift, but I was thinking about this as I was swimming. I'm going to have to wear the safety belt as well. Lead by example, get those mirror neurons going. So when I started low carb or trying to go low carb and paleo, I didn't have the tribe that Dr. Sivas and Dr. Barry talk about or any of the low carbers. My tribe was my doctor and his office staff. And when I read, oh my God, I'm stalled. What am I doing? I went an entire year without losing 1 pound. And I had started working out in a gym specifically designed for people with neurological disorders. Because I wanted to try an experimental treatment that it's not the place or the time to talk about it. So let's leave it at that. But I didn't lose a pound. And 6 months in, I was sobbing in his office because we'd been doing the blood work every 3 months. And he said, do you understand how important it is that your HDL came up from 37 to 41? Do you understand that your triglycerides are now below 200? Do you understand that although you're inflamed, your inflammation markers are coming down? And I'm sobbing, no, just no, this isn't right. This guy, it's not about the weight. The weight is a byproduct of something else going on in some cases, because there's a lot of skinny people out there too that are metabolically challenged. So in some cases, the weight's the byproduct. Okay, it's not the issue, although Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, whatever's out there, it's always going to be what does the scale say. Okay, so at my worst, here are the figures: 215 pounds, 48-inch waist, body fat of 48.6. So almost 50% of my 215 pounds was fat. So 42C by somebody at Victoria's Secrets, because all they sell the bras, so 42C. She wanted to sell me a padded bra, and I'm like, are you kidding? I don't need a padded bra. I'm big enough as it is. So now the measurements are 31-inch waist, 36B, 132, body fat of 25%, BMI of 24 point, it waffles between 24.2 and 24.5. Okay, so a year ago when we did blood work, my HDL was at 51. I credited that okay, at least it wasn't below 50. And that was just before I was able to start going back to the pool, because I had to be vaxxed before I could go back to the pool and aqua jog. So that's what I do every day. I aqua jog every day now, and I go backwards because going forwards, due to the CP, I don't have the trunk muscles. So I'm going like this, and that's really hard on my neck. So yeah, that was, worst to best. I said to my son, you're coming out for Thanksgiving. My birthday is either the Sunday after Thanksgiving or Monday. I don't need a cake, but if other people need a cake, you can decide what you want. I'm quite happy with one piece of tiramisu that somebody will split with me. That's about the only cake I eat now, because I love carrot cake, but they frost it. And so
tell us how you decide, or like, what was the aha moment that maybe this was food addiction or sugar addiction or whatever label it is that
nobody would believe me. I was saying I'm a food addict, and no, you're not. You're stressed, you're tired, you're in pain. You're a mother of 2 active boys. nobody, so perhaps maybe my husband, who wouldn't openly say it to me because he didn't want to hurt my feelings, would understand that this was a food addiction. It wasn't until I stumbled onto a Ken Berry video, Dr. Ken Berry. I don't know, do you know who he is? Okay. And he mentioned some dude named Rob Sivas who talked about carb addiction. So I stopped the video right there, and on YouTube, I YouTube, searched on the search bar, Rob Sivas carb addiction. And I'm like, oh my God, this man is my hero. He's saying what I was saying back in 2008. So yeah, no, it was this past like 9 months ago when I found Rob Sivas. And so I signed up for Low Carb San Diego, which starts tonight. I mean, they're doing their fancy speakers dinner tonight. And then I think the first presentation is tomorrow night. So I signed up for the online version because I don't have $450, but I can spend 99 and listen to him. But it was Rob Sivas, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy he's spot on.
So you start listening to Dr. Sivas. I'm guessing you like watched his YouTube videos, and I know Dr. Berry has talked about food addiction before. And meanwhile, you were doing low carb. So once you like had like people saying, yep, this is legitimate, this is what it is, and you were like, okay, feeling validated, I'm not crazy, this is what it is.
But by this time I was already in maintenance. I didn't lose a pound until we started. Are you familiar with the HCG diet?
I am, yep.
Okay, so when Dr. Howe said, okay, you're my first person, because you're the only one that I trust that won't sue me, we'll do the HCG diet. But here's the deal. It's 20 pounds or 30 days. And I don't know whether this is going to work or not because of the medication you were on. Okay, fine. So I lost 20 pounds in 30 days. But I still hadn't gotten to the mindset of this is a lifestyle, it's not a diet. Because I literally, and I have to laugh at this, I literally counted the days until I could have an actual piece of pizza, including the crust. So I missed the boat somewhere. It took maybe the second or third round before I realized, okay, eat the toppings, screw the crust. This is too much hard work. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so talk about that. Like, what was that aha then that like, this is a lifestyle, like this is not a diet anymore. Like this is real. If this is truly food addiction, there's something more here.
I don't necessarily think that there was an aha moment like Oprah talks about, but it was okay. So you do the first round of HCG, you have to wait 6 or 8 weeks before you can do another round. So it was like, okay, how am I going to maintain what I lost? Because I certainly don't want to put 20 pounds back on. But it was the second time, maybe the third time, because by the third time, I'm like, this is stupid to carb load. So I started fat loading. And I noticed I didn't gain any weight. Because I don't know if Dr. Simeon's protocol is you're supposed to carb load. And then you go on the HCG diet and you lose weight. Well, I was putting on weight if I carb load. But I didn't put on weight if I fat loaded by like eating extra avocado, eating avocados, or putting coconut cream or cream in my coffee, or, just making sure I had added healthy fats. Mm-hmm. So I didn't lose any weight.
Yeah. So did you find that when you were eating the carbs then between, your treatments, were you eating things that like were lighting up your brain like a Christmas tree? Like, were you eating the things that once you started, you couldn't stop?
Yeah. When I realized that was happening, it was like, okay, I need to stop this. I don't need Bailey's every night. So you only get Bailey's twice a week. Or I would start asking, can you split a dessert with me? Or let's skip dessert. Even before we sat down, I would just say, let's skip dessert. I don't even want to deal with it. Just tell them no. So yeah. what I noticed most of all was my mood if I had overcarbed or feeling really horrible, sleepy, there's not enough coffee in the world that'll make me feel happy. I mean, so on our 30th wedding anniversary, we were celebrating the fact that we were about ready to be grandparents. We'd been married for 30 years. We'd known each other for 37. It's not always about me. We're in the middle of a pandemic. My husband said I would really love some DeMille's lasagna. And I don't know where you are, but in San Diego, California, if you wanted a good lasagna, DeMille's was the place. So he went down and got it. And I cut mine in half and I gave him the bigger half for his lunch the next day. I ate the pasta and the lasagna. And again, I was already in maintenance phase, but for 3 days I felt so horrible. It's like, okay, I am never eating pasta again. And I haven't. I mean, I started by skipping the pasta when I made spaghetti. I would put mine over green beans or broccoli, something like that. I make tacos. When we have tacos, I'll do a salad instead of putting it in a tortilla. So things like that. That's what I've done. But
Is
yeah.
there anything that you've had to give up completely?
Pasta, cookies. Because once I get that sweetness in my mouth, I want more of it. So it's like, okay, I'm kind of like Kelly Hogan. It's better off that I don't touch it, especially the wheat type stuff, especially the gluten, the pastries, the cookies, the pies, that sort of thing. I started making frittatas instead of quiche.
Sure. Okay.
I'm having the kids home for Thanksgiving, and I was thinking as I was aqua jogging today, if I make a pumpkin pie, I'm going to use pecans as the crust.
Yeah, I've done something like that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, Dr. Saiva says don't get into the lookalikes the lookalikes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Because I don't know about for you, but for me, a baked good is a baked good. So if I make cookies with coconut flour and, really bitter dark chocolate chips and whatever, and artificial sweeteners, it's still a baked good to my brain. I'm still wanting to eat the whole pan.
Right. As opposed to just one. Yeah. Like, Keto Chow's got their ice cream you can do with creamies. They've got cookies. They've got pancakes. I made Keto Chow pancakes when my granddaughter was here, with vanilla, the eggs, and some cheese. And they were really good. My daughter-in-law even commented on them. So those sorts of things I keep for when my granddaughter or my nieces and nephews are here. But I try not to keep desserts in the house because I'll eat them. I asked my husband, he was going to Costco, and I said, hey, can you pick up some goat cheese? The only goat cheese they had was a key lime pie. So I flipped it over when he brought it home. 9 grams of carbs for 1 ounce. Yeah.
Sugar. So other than like keeping certain things out of the house and like doing some substitutions, like you said, like over green beans or over, something else, what other things do you do? Like, are you part of do you have a community of people that you support you in these decisions? Do you work with anybody one-on-one? Like, what kinds of things do you do to keep yourself on track?
Okay. So for the last year, and it's almost over, I decided to end it in September. So I've joined Two Crazy Ketos Facebook family thing. I listen to Dr. Barry, either I catch him live or I listen on the replay of his Monday Night Live. I have a couple of friends. Again, COVID really, put a kink in things. Like I was telling a friend of mine today about the interview, and she goes, it's carb addiction. I went, well, yeah, it is, which is food. But I talk with Kath a lot. In fact, the other day I said, look, I understand that you gave up beef for whatever reasons years ago. But if you really want to get to where you're not having to eat before you go to bed, you need to do something so you're not eating enough during the day, so you can not have to eat just before you go to bed. I understand sleep is important. I understand you're a teacher. I get all of that because I was that, but you're not eating enough during the day. So I do track on Chronometer, but my experiment was I got a Keto Mojo. So for the last year, I've been checking my blood sugar in the morning and my ketones. And then, so I know if I eat after 7, the blood sugar is going to rise. So I try to keep, stopping at 7. Well, now it's more, let's stop at 6:45. Looking at those ketones. My background is I have a bachelor's in business and I have a master's in software engineering. So I'm a bit of a data geek. So data means something to me.
Yes. Go ahead.
Like I found out that, okay, butternut squash is not keto because it's a squash. But green beans will raise my blood sugar quicker than butternut squash.
What do you think that is?
I think green beans ultimately are a legume. We forget about that. Green beans are ultimately a legume. So I think that's what it is. The other thing that I found is, okay, because I have cerebral palsy and I've been off and on crutches all my life, and now I'm either on crutches or in a wheelchair, I've developed carpal tunnel syndrome. And of course, their thing is let's do surgery. And my thing is I can't afford to lose functionality. Even working with a nutritionist, I knew about lectins, but I didn't know about phytates and oxalates. So that I learned over the past year, kind of going to keto school through YouTube and the low carb oxalate coach on Twitter, those sorts of things. So I've started cutting those out of my diet. So yeah, I have gone like 85% carnivore. So, where else can you have an eating style where you gain 5 pounds but lose a dress size?
Yeah. So talk to me about what is life like now. We heard like what life was like before you started like this wellness journey, this journey that you've been on, and your son saying like, oh, it was the mood swings that were the worst. Like, what is life now like in the last 9 months or even longer, I guess, maybe?
Okay, so when COVID broke out, I decided, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am not putting on any more weight. So I found a YouTube video, a guy on YouTube that does videos for people with disabilities, sit and get fit kind of things. His name is Paul Eugene. And then I got brave, so I started doing some of his stand-up stuff. And so I did that every day for 2 years. Never, maybe twice I missed a day. So, like the sit and get fit with boxing, the sit and get fit with dancing. And then I would stand up behind a couch down in the family room, and my husband put a runner down there. And I exercised to Paul Eugene. I recommend him to just about everybody that wants something. I mean, I've even recommended him on 2 Crazy Ketos because I've heard a couple of people, well, I'm disabled and I can't do. Okay, check this guy out. Okay, because he does some sit and get fit. He also does standing. And so I'm hanging onto the couch and I'm trying to move my feet and legs as best I can. So I didn't gain a pound. So I was really happy about that. But it was a lot of work. And what I tell people is it's a daily decision. And sometimes it's even an every meal decision. So just like the alcoholic, you can fall right back into it. It's so easy. So it's a daily decision.
So do you have a plan for yourself if you were to fall back into it? Do you have a plan as to how you would get out? Or have you already been down that path and had to get yourself back out?
I don't want to go down that path.
Yeah.
Because down that path means I could end up in an assisted living center and then my food is up to somebody else. I don't have control over it. So, that, and it's not cocky, it's more fear. Okay.
More of like a non-negotiable, like you just cannot afford based on your medical needs, that kind of thing too.
Right. Exactly. Like I fell the day before yesterday and my husband got a towel so we could put it under my bum. And as I scooted towards the stairs, because we live in a multi-story house, because it was the only way I could get up, was get to the stairs, get my legs over the stairs, and then stand up. And he handed me my crutches, and I was very grateful that I've yet to break that bone or my hip bone, but it's very scary because it's like it is written, like somewhere out there, there's fall, and then broken hip. So that is a huge motivator. Like, I think her name is Judy Chung. She's a nutritionist that works a bit with Dr. Sivas, and she's a carnivore, and she said she has to stay carnivore because if she doesn't, it's a free for all. So she stays carnivore. And I've kind of done that. It's like, no, you have to stay on the straight and narrow. You can split the occasional tiramisu. You can have the smallest gelato you can get up at UTC, which is like a 45-minute drive away. So it's not like the Starbucks, like there's 6 of them within a mile radius of my house.
Right. So if you went and got a mocha, it might be a whole nother story.
Right.
But
So I just stay out of
these-
Starbucks, it's just, and I mean, I've got cocoa down on my cupboard that I probably need to toss because it's almost a year old, but because I used to make mug cakes, and I would make them out of almond flour. But after listening to Rob Sivas, it's like, okay, a snack is always an emotional event. So I didn't make them for a while, and then I made one. I'm like, what did I see in these? What? I mean, I even switched from almond flour to hemp seeds because there's less carbs. And those were pretty good. But after not having one for a while, it's like, what did I see in these? What did I like? So now my dessert is, if you will, is at the end of the day, like after dinner, I have one last cup of coffee and I'll put in like a half a scoop of keto chow with some butter. And then that's it. After
so
that,
it's something just fatty that to just close the end of the
right,
day.
and make sure that I've got enough protein. And that's what I mean, if someone said, okay, what do I do? Number one, make sure you're getting enough protein. And if you're not getting at least 100 grams, you're not eating enough protein. I strive for between 100 to about 125 a day. That's my goal. And then carbs are 35, cap out at 45. So that's the ultimate cap, is 45. And then the fat is wherever the fat lands. I don't really care anymore. Because I've actually lost weight over the last couple of weeks, lost a couple of pounds. And when I was at the doctor's yesterday for lab work, he said, do not lose any more weight and do not bring your A1C down any farther. You're at 4.7. You're done. Do you understand me? And I went, look, for me to bring my A1C down lower, I have to start extended fasting like Dr. Boz promotes. And I'm just not into that. So that's the other thing, is figure out where you're like, I'm not going to do this. Forget it. I think that's important too, is know your own boundaries.
Yes.
I can intermittent fast. That doesn't bother me to go from 7 in the evening till 11 in the morning. I've realized I'm not going to die because I did it for 2 years and I didn't die of hunger or starvation. 10 to 11 is usually my hardest hour if I'm at home. I don't know why 10 to 11 is usually the hardest, but it is. So, so I didn't die, so I knew that. But it's also like, know what because this is something that I'm working on an essay. It's like, okay, keto is not a sport. Okay. It's not a competition. Keto, low carb, carnivore, lion diet, whatever. It's not a competition. There's no one right way to do this because it's so individualized. It's like a fingerprint. There are some basic guidelines, but you don't have to do the extended fasting unless your doctor recommends it. And I'm just not gonna, my body has been pushed from the minute I was born because of the CP. I am not gonna try and push myself to, get like a gold ribbon or a blue ribbon or a gold star or whatever. Okay, I did a 24-hour fast. Who cares? Because the other thing is I still have to live in the micro community of my family. And if you're gonna be grumpy and cranky, you know.
What does your husband think about all of this and the journey that you've been on and, from way back in the beginning to today?
It's important to him that I keep as healthy as I can do it. I'm the only one that can do it. He can't do it for me. So when I say I need to eat carnivore tonight, he's like, fine. He doesn't care. It's like, no, he's not like, no, at 6 o'clock and you have to fix dinner for me. No, he's never been that way. So I've been really blessed that way. So no, he's really happy. The healthier I am, the healthier the marriage is.
I mean, has he commented the same way your son has about like just the change in mood, or have you noticed an improvement in your relationship or a change in your relationship at all?
No, because he's an engineer and they just don't talk about that stuff.
Got it. My husband's an engineer as well, and I totally know what you're talking about.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever gone to a Christmas party and somebody's trying to get the engineers to sing carols and they don't.
No, it's so awful. I just don't even go anymore.
So yeah, he's an engineer. He's an electrical engineer. So no, he doesn't talk about that. He changed from that dress looks good on you, or that's in a good color, to that dress really looks good on you. So there's a difference there. So, oh, the color of the, is nice versus that really looks good on you. And that's a huge thing. Because it's a whole different perspective. I like that color on you versus that dress really hangs well on you. So those are the comments that I've gotten. You do what you need to do to keep healthy.
Yeah.
So
does anybody try to push things on you, or have you been pretty clear? Like, nope, I don't eat those things, or
yeah. When I went back to the Midwest in October for my nephew's wedding reception, and my aunt was trying to push things on me, and I'm like, Aunt Peggy, I don't eat them. Sorry. And low carb does not mean low fat. That trouble, So I said, Aunt Peggy, no, I don't eat it. My biggest supporter besides my immediate family has been one of my younger sisters. And she ran track in high school. So she runs and I swim. And when I was in high school, there was no accessible sports for children with disabilities. You just didn't compete. That was just the way it was. So, but I aqua jog and she runs. And she was a really good supporter. So a couple of times while I was there, she and her husband came and got me. So I could be out of the stress of, no, I'm not eating the potatoes. No, I don't want the cake. Because that was the other thing that I realized is no cake really looks as good as it tastes. Cakes always look better than they taste.
Amen to that. It's so true. And you noticed that too when you made the mud cake, it sounds like. So yeah. Isn't that funny how that works out? It's just, it's like you do this long enough, right? And there really are changes. There's changes in your taste buds, there's changes in your brain, right? And I think that's the thing, like people sometimes in the early days, right? It's tough sometimes.
It is.
Maybe not for everybody, but it can be. Yeah. I mean, was it tough for you? And how did you what did you do?
Because I didn't know keto existed. I had no clue. And I was the only one trying to do what I was doing. And it was, well, when you lose the weight, we can go for ice cream. No, when you lose the weight, it's like, no, this is a lifestyle. I mean, we're having steak tonight for dinner, and I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to throw some cheese on some broccoli or not. I haven't decided what I want to do with that. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Just kind of depends. So I have to look and see yesterday, what did I eat? It was a little higher on the carby side than I would have liked. So maybe we'll just do carnivore tonight. I don't know. Luckily, my husband's not a real veg person. And here's the irony. We always told the boys, eat your meat. They were never told, eat your vegetables or eat the bread. And my son mentioned that too. He's like, you guys will always eat the meat. And then you would sneak food, and you didn't think we caught you, but we did. They didn't catch me, they just saw it. So, but yeah, and I've gone back and apologized for getting into the peanut M&Ms to my sister and brother-in-law. My sister didn't remember that I did it, but my brother-in-law did. So I've gone back and apologized for things that I know I screwed up on. You know you're getting better when your nephew comes up to you and says, we haven't gone to Starbucks yet, and you're always the aunt that takes us to Starbucks. You know, and so I said, well, let's wait. Let's talk to your dad. I think your dad's going to have an early day. And since your dad was gracious enough to let me come and stay with you for a while, I think your dad should be the one included in the Starbucks. So they get the mocha frappuccinos and the raspberry mochas and whatever else, and Americano. And my sister's like, is that it? Yep. So, you know, you're getting better when what you did, you don't do anymore.
That's
and
right.
Over Christmas, I don't know, a year into the COVID, my husband brought a peppermint mocha to me, and I think he got one of their creme brulee things. And we're sitting down at the dining room table, and we're drinking them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this tastes worse than what I had to drink when I had the oral glucose tolerance test years ago. It tastes that sweet. And I said, okay, would you be mad at me if I just said, can I dump this out? And he's like, no, I'm about ready to do the same thing. Because you're right, your tastes change. You know, so what tasted good back then, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to eat that. You know?
Yeah, now it's so interesting, right? When that happens and you can look back and go like, oh yeah, remember when I used to do that? But like, there's no current version of us, right? That's like, yeah, that's something I'm going to go out and do. It's just like, oh yeah, I used to do that. That's not part of my present or future.
I have an older sister who is a diabetic, and I tried to get her keto. I can't afford it. And I went, okay. I didn't realize how much money I was spending at Starbucks until I stopped spending it. Okay, so that's now my meat money. Okay. I didn't really buy a bunch of keto products because when I started my low carb going towards keto, I was the only one doing it. So, you know, I go to Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's doesn't have a lot of keto-ish products. So it's either loaded with carbs or it's not. So, and my husband does the Costco run. So unless I ask him specifically to get something, you know, Joe and Rachel did the Monk bars on one of their product reviews. And I thought, okay, that might be keto, but not for me because I would eat it like a candy bar. So, you know, I'll try to keep all of that stuff out of the house.
Yes. And that's such an important message. And I so appreciate you bringing that up, right there. Just because something is labeled keto or it's designed for somebody who is trying to follow their macros in a specific way does not mean that it's right for us. And we really have to take a moment and think about, what are the ingredients in this? Am I going to eat it like a candy bar, or am I going to use it for what its intended purpose is?
Right.
Is a mug cake really any different than just the regular, yeah, exactly, whatever. And so I just really appreciate you being willing to talk about that, because I think there can be a lot of confusion, because this is more than just about being keto and low carb, which it sounds like has been amazing for you health-wise and that kind of thing. But when we're treating food addiction, sugar addiction, carb addiction, whatever label we want to put on it, right? It really means we have to stop and think about those things.
Right. You have to turn over and see what the nutrition site says, and you have to know what you're going to do with it. I mean, when Dr. Saiba says it's no different than an alcoholic or a heroin addict, he's not kidding. He really isn't. And so, yeah, you have to look at, okay, what would I do with this? I would eat it like a candy bar.
Yeah. And that takes a level of radical honesty that, right, that some of us in the beginning are not capable of, right? Because we're like, I have to give up what and what and what and what.
Yeah, if somebody told me back in 2008, okay, there will be a time when you won't even have Baileys in the house, you would say, okay, if I'm gonna have an Irish coffee, doggone it, I'm gonna make it real with coffee and real whiskey and whipped cream. I don't care about the artificial sweeteners because I don't like 99% of them, and monk fruit makes my tinnitus go through the roof. So it's like pain is a real good motivator. So I'm gonna make the real Irish coffee, or I'm gonna make the real Mexican coffee using real tequila. I'm not gonna buy some liqueur. So that I wouldn't have Baileys in the house, that I wouldn't be making mug cakes every night, that, you know, that I would get into the, bless you, that I would get into the kitchen and look at my spices and come up with like roasted vegetable salads when I want veg, or like keto chow Swedish meatballs with their beef bone broth base. That's amazing. My husband loves it. I love it. It's amazing. Making kofta meatballs. And then, you know, Vic goes and gets tzatziki sauce. That's even great. That's yogurt with cucumbers and mint, depending on who makes it. I can make it myself, but he'll go and he'll get it. And, you know, it's plain yogurt with cucumbers and mint in it. So, but yeah, or that I would be looking up recipes, like, and I've done this. I've said like chicken, broccoli, bacon, and hit Google to see what comes up. And now I'll look and say, okay, let's do a keto version of this. Let's, you know, let's cut out the flour and the, like, who knew that cream cheese could be a thickening agent?
Sure.
You
Right.
know?
Getting a little creative and finding the things that work for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I did that growing up, second to the oldest of 10 kids. I'd have to go into the kitchen and like, okay, what am I going to fix with what I got? I was doing Chopped before Chopped was a show.
Right. It was a mystery basket. Make a meal from it. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so like, no, there's no potatoes in my house. There's no rice in my house. There's no oatmeal in my house. There's no bread in my house. We have keto ice cream bars up there. Once in a great while, I might have one, but not often. My husband buys the Rebel ice cream. Sometimes I'll snag a tablespoon of that. But again, checking with the blood glucose, it shoots my blood sugar up. And it's like, no, I would rather keep it on a stable. I mean, yeah, you need to spike it a little bit, but it doesn't need to go up to 125.
Yeah. And we can spike it by just moving our bodies, or,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
and it gets spiked just from stress. We don't necessarily have to be artificially spiking it
Right.
by putting these, you know, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you know, to take Saivas as, you know, a snacking is an emotional event. Like, what is ice cream? It's not nutritional, even if it's
No,
Rebel or
it's for your brain.
whatever those.
I mean,
Yeah, it's for a
that,
dopamine hit, period.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. And sometimes it's okay, you know, but you have to understand what you're doing.
Right. And it's okay for you. Like you said, you can take a tablespoon of it and walk away. But certainly I've worked with people that it can't even be in their house.
Right.
Yeah. Like you
So-
were saying with some of those other things that just can't be in the house. Like for
Yeah.
you, if you were to have a mocha, it'd be over.
It'd be over. I can't. No. Can't.
Yep.
No. So if I have a mocha, I have to make it, because then I know what's in it, or more importantly, what's not in it.
Right.
And
Right.
so, but yeah, there are things that just aren't in my house anymore. I've gotten away from the quote unquote food bars. If I'm not hungry enough to, you know, now Costco does have the Angus burgers already cooked, so all I have to do is throw one in the microwave. I do that almost every day for lunch. You know, it's a hamburger patty, sometimes two. So I do that, but as far as like lean cuisine or some of these other, again, you're getting into keto type products, they're not in the house.
No. Well, and so many of those are made by the same companies who are making all of those other things anyway.
Mhm.
Right. And so it says keto, but when we read the ingredients, like you said, there are typically things in there that either are going to metabolically distress us, or right, spike our dopamine reward center to crave more and more and more and more. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I've
absolutely.
gone through that where I've had to white knuckle it because I ate something.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
really spiked that dopamine. And I'm like, okay, this sucks,
Yeah.
So it's like when you're disciplining a child 1 or 2 times and time out for doing something they shouldn't have done, they're going to learn. If I tell you not to touch the hot stove and you touch it anyways, I'm going to give you hugs and kisses and treat the burn, but you're probably not going to touch that hot stove again.
That's right. Natural consequences, right?
Natural consequences, yeah. And when I felt so awful after the lasagna dinner, I haven't touched pasta. Now I've made Marie Emmerich's meat pasta or meat lasagna.
Oh,
where you
yeah.
use, like,
It's
the
one of my
turkey.
favorites. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I did it when I was back in Michigan at my nephew's reception. My brother, my brothers and sisters, some of my brothers and sisters live in Michigan, and I made it. And my brother Joe helped, bless his heart. He browned 5 pounds of hamburger, and I made it. And my sister Jackie says, "I can't believe you've never made this before, and you served it to us the first time you made it." And I went, "I'm a good cook, okay? I know this would work."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, Angela, I know we're running short on time, and I appreciate you so much for being here, and I want to honor and respect your time as well. And I know you've got some things to get to, but before you go, I like to ask, are there any words of wisdom or anything that you would have liked to have heard when you started this journey? So like anything that you would like to say to somebody who's starting this journey, or who's on this journey but struggling, or anything you would have liked to have heard, 9 months ago, years ago, that would have been helpful to you?
Don't concentrate on the weight. As somebody who didn't lose a pound for the first year of going low carb, don't concentrate on the weight. Concentrate on the biomarkers. I don't care whether you get a Keto Mojo or whether you walk into CVS. And in fact, that might be a good idea, because they say take your measurements. Okay, with my posture, I've always got a 34-inch waist. I've gone from a size 14 to a size 10, but my waist is always 34 inches. So find something else, okay? You can go into CVS and get your A1C checked and a basic lipid panel. So the numbers you're looking for are my triglycerides going down, is my HDL going up, and what's my A1C? Is it the same? Is it different? And it's pretty cheap. So invest in yourself. Because if you're not spending it buying all the crap that you bought, the cookies, the cake, the ice cream, the mochas, frappuccinos, whatever, the Baileys, then you can take some of that money every 3 months and just have them go do a basic lipid panel and an A1C or an A1C. Pick what you can afford and go do it. In fact, I think you can get an A1C home test kit, and you can do up to 4, I think, from Amazon. So that's what I would say. It's not about the weight. Check your markers, do some measurements. I always measure right above my thigh because I've got incisions, and right where the incision ends, that's where I measure. So that's a measurement I know I can get right. But, and my breasts, okay? The bras are the bras. They either fit you or they don't. So, so if you can't do the standard measurements, do the measurements you can do. And it's not always about the weight. You got to keep faith that the weight will come.
Yeah. Oh, such great words to end this on, because so many people struggle with that hyper focus on the weight. And your story just goes to show, when you focused on getting healthy, the weight took care of itself.
Yeah. I mean, I did use the HCG diet, but ultimately I had to focus on other things. And I've maintained it since 2019. I mean, my son getting ready for a wedding, his father-in-law had tracks to act as ramps. I told him the dimensions of my wheelchair. He comes back, he said, "Are you sure? You better have Dad measure that again." Dad measured it. This is it. And when he saw me, he was like, wow. Because I had slim down so much. So yeah, it's not always about the weight. It's not about the weight so much as it's about those other biomarkers. And the other thing that I had was a handheld Orum, little body fat and BMI. So you enter in your weight, you enter in your exercise, whatever you do, and then it'll give you your body fat and it'll give you your BMI. And I know that there's a 20% either way, but you're looking for improvement. You're looking for improvement. So the weight will come, but look at the other biomarkers.
Well, thank you again so much for being a part of this project and, speaking your story out loud. So hopefully others aren't suffering in silence. I just appreciate you so much. And I can't wait to get to chat with you again in the future, hopefully.
Well, you have my email. So.
I do. Yeah.
Oh, and I have yours now.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So do you mind if I ask what you do? Do you work with people that are dealing with food addiction?
I do. That's exactly what I do. Yeah, absolutely. I one-on-ones, groups, all of that. So yep. I also co-host the Food Junkies podcast with Vera Tarman, Dr. Vera Tarman, who wrote Food Junkies, and Clarissa Kennedy. And we've interviewed Rob Sivas and Ken Berry and Maria Emmerich and some of those folks that you mentioned today that, have been so helpful to you because we all, we believe in treating the disease of food addiction. I'm also on a team that I'm on the team that's working to get food addiction recognized by the World Health Organization. And then we're partnering with the team that is working with the American Psychiatric Association for the new DSM. Well, the newest DSM is now released. DSM-5 TR is out. So it would be DSM-6 or whatever the version would be. But yep, absolutely. So kind of have interest in all kinds of places, working clinically one-on-one with clients in groups, that kind of thing, but then also the more political aspect of things. So
because I think that that's important because like back in 2007, 2008, I knew I was in trouble. But you're not addicted to food. There's no such thing. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And so that was really hard. And then having a disability on top of that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just, it's been tough, but yeah, my drop dead is if you go back to where you were, you're going to end up in an assisted living.
Yeah.
And that would be wretched. So, but yeah, anyways, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.